guest this afternoon is Swami Tattwamayananda, who is a monk of the Ramakrishna Order. And I just thought I would say something really quickly in case anybody's watching or anybody here unfamiliar with the Ramakrishna Order. It is an order of monks that was founded in the late 19th century in roughly around 1893 to 1896 by Sri Ramakrishna, who was for lack of a better way of putting it, a Hindu saint, and was then brought sort of to the awareness of the rest of the world by his disciple, Swami Vivekananda, who was really the first individual to come to the United States and to, particularly in 1893, the World Congress of, I want to say, I get this wrong because I mix it up with the World Congress of Philosophy. But it was to an interfaith gathering in Chicago around the time of the World's Fair, and was the first to sort of popularize Vedantic philosophy and yoga in the United States. And Swami Tattwamayananda has the honor, I should say, of being the primary Swami at the Northern California Vedanta Society, which the home of that society was the first Hindu temple founded in the United States and in North America, I believe I'm right in saying. The Swami is somebody who has taught Vedantic philosophy, Indian philosophy, yoga, especially I saw in the bio, obviously the Prasthana Treyi, which are the three main texts of Advaita Vedanta, the Brahma-Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads, basically. So he's somebody with a great deal of scholarly knowledge of Indian philosophy, and it's an honor for us to have him here to speak to our group.
Good afternoon. Just people, students are listening from different parts of this country and this state. So thank you for that generous introduction, Professor. Now, the subject, as you all know, is the essence of yoga. Now, yoga is one of the 6 theistic systems of Indian philosophy. The Indian philosophical tradition, there are 2 main streams. The one, what we call the theistic systems of philosophy, 6 in number, and the atheistic, or you may call them agnostic. There's not much of a distinction in Indian context. The 6 theistic systems of Indian philosophy are Sankhya and Yoga, Nyaya and Vaisheshika, Purvamimamsa and Uttaramimamsa. Of this, yoga, originally expounded by Patanjali, belongs to the theistic system. So theistic system doesn't mean a system of philosophy which necessarily accepts a created God. Theism, or this theistic system of philosophy in Indian context, means a system of philosophy which accepts and acknowledges the authority of Vedas as one of the primary authorities of the supreme authority, depending upon the context. Sankhya and Yoga, Nyaya and Vaisheshika accept Vedas as one of the fundamental authorities. Purvamimamsa and Uttaramimamsa, called Vedanta, accept Vedas as the supreme authority. That's only the difference. The 6 agnostic or atheistic system of, we may call non-orthodox or unorthodox systems of Indian philosophy are Charvaka, that is Indian materialism, and then Jaina, which is, if you all know, it is a system of philosophy fundamentally based on non-violence. And then the 4 systems of Buddhism. In Buddhist tradition, there are 2 main streams, the Hinayana and Mahayana. In the Hinayana system, there are 2 systems of realism. It's called Sautrantika and Vaibhashya. And in Mahayana, there are 2 schools of idealism, Shunyavada and Vijnanavada. So these are the 12 systems of Indian philosophy. In general, there are other branches and a number of other fringe groups of Indian philosophical systems, which I have not time to go into details right now. Now coming to yoga. Now, yoga system, as I mentioned, was originally expounded by Patanjali. So there's an interesting background about this great sage, Patanjali. I may quote a few Sanskrit verses, and I shall translate and I shall give an interpretation, expanded meaning. And if you have any doubt, you are most welcome. You can ask questions, and I shall try to explain further during the interaction. So one of the verses that we frequently recite at the beginning of any yoga class, both in the Hatha Yoga, the yoga studios, at least in many parts of the world, and also when you give lectures and classes on Yoga-Sutras, that is, Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Vaidhyagena Yoga Viruddham Pravaram Muninam Patanjali Pranjali Ranatusmi. What this verse tells you is my tributes to the great sage Patanjali, who is the author of these Yoga-Sutras. Now, this Patanjali was a very remarkable sage. He made contributions to 3 different schools of philosophy or 3 different aspects of our life. He is perhaps the author of the most elaborate and the most extensive commentary on grammar. It's called Patanjala Mahapashyam. If you want to keep all the volumes together of Patanjala Mahapashyam, you may require the whole space of this big table out. Huge book. And remember, that book is considered to be the first effort to elevate language into a system of philosophy. See, the way we speak language will affect our mind, our character, our life. Just as our language reflects our culture, the way we speak also will refine our mind. So he wrote this well-known book, Patanjala Mahapashyam, in order to give a refined, in order to get a picture of the refined form of spoken word and written word. This is one. Another great contribution, as I mentioned, he tried to give you a refined form of human mind, how to refine, how to purify our emotions, feelings, and thoughts. For that, he wrote these Yoga-Sutras. So literally, the verse means, in order to remove the dirt and filth of speech, he wrote this well-known philosophical book on grammar. In order to remove the dirt and filth, maybe unhealthy emotions and feelings from our mind, he wrote the Yoga-Sutras. And then another great book that he wrote was a great commentary on, it's called Charaka Sutras. It's a great book on Ayurveda. These are 3 great contributions of Patanjali. So that I want to give you a background of this, because this has something to do with the contents of Yoga-Sutras. So there is an invocation that we normally chant at the beginning of class. Suve Patanjali Vyasam Shankaram Cha Manitrayam Katra Sutrasya Bhashishya Krama Vivaranasya. What it means is, this, this yoga, it's called Yoga Sutra. Sutra means a thread. It also means a way of expressing ideas in a very few words, not even one sentence. In fact, you will be surprised. The last sutra of Panini in Sanskrit grammar is which actually expounds the method of pronouncing closed vowel and open vowel, what you call diphthong and proper vowel. Now, anyway, that's a different subject. So he wrote this Yoga Sutras in the form of sutra. Sutra means a short pithy statement which should be profound, which should be capable of containing a lot of broader meaning and capable of being extended to different levels to give different aspects of what it contains. So the Alpaksharamasam Diktam Saravad Vishwakamukam Astogam Anavadyam Sutram Sutra Vidovidu is a definition of Sutra. If you have any doubt, if you want more ideas about this, I can maybe explain during interaction. Now coming to this Patanjali Yoga-Sutras. Patanjali Yoga-Sutras contain 195 sutras divided into 4 chapters. The 4 chapters are Samadhi Bada, Sadhana Bada, Vibhuti Bada, and Kaivalya Bada. Samadhi means concentration, Sadhana means practice, Vibhuti means the results or the effects of the yoga practice, Kaivalya means the pathway to enlightenment. So normally, you can see the printed book, all the Yoga Sutra texts that you buy from the markets will have this order. First Samadhi Bada, then Sadhana Bada, then Vibhuti Bada, then Kaivalya Bada. But the traditional schools, they first teach 14 sutras of Samadhi Bada because they contain the definitions, the fundamental definitions of the terms, technical terms used in the Sutra literature. So the first 14 sutras of Samadhi Bada are taught first, and then you actually begin with practice. You practice the first step. Then the results, Vibhuti Bada, then Samadhi Bada proper, then Kaivalya Bada, enlightenment. So this is an overall picture. Now I would say a few things about what Yoga Sutra actually is dealing with. You can find in our life, there is this conflict between what we want to do and what our mind actually permits us to do. You can imagine if we can do whatever we want to do, there will be no problem in this world and there will be no problem in our life. Everyone wants to be a good person, successful person, happy person, totally free from conflicts, problems, and difficulties. And you can always find there are many things that we want to do, we are not able to do. For example, today you take a decision, tomorrow onwards, I shall get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Or you take a decision, you go to a church or a temple and you meditate, let's say half an hour tomorrow, 6 to 6:30. Now tomorrow when you actually try to do that, your mind tells you, well, maybe today I have a lot of appointments, so maybe I will do tomorrow. So procrastination. Actually, mind is playing this trick. Mind is trying to put forward this excuse for not doing in the form of an additional word, which actually you never thought of this. And again, there are many things that we would like to do. But when we try to do, there's an invisible barrier, the invisible iron barrier. We cannot do that. Why does this happen? Patanjali tells you that it's because of our own accumulated tendencies, impressions, what he calls samskaras. Remember, the word samskaras not used by Patanjali in maybe more than 3-4 times in his 195 sutras. But Vyasa, the great commentator, it was Vyasa who actually tried to explain the reason why we are not able to do what we want to do. See, if you want to drive to, let's say, if you want to take a flight to San Francisco, physically, you can more or less do what you want to do. If you want to walk in this direction, that direction, you can do. But you don't have the same control on your mind. You don't have the same control on your mind. At a physical level, we have some autonomy, but we can never be sure what will be the next thought that emerges in my mind. So Vyasa says we are not the products of circumstances. We are the products of samskaras. So what are samskaras? Samskaras are nothing but the accumulated tendencies, impressions, emotions, and feelings, and attitudes and aptitudes that lie accumulated in the mental system. And these samskaras are twofold. Some samskaras, the word samskaras frequently used in modern English books on Yoga-Sutras, because we don't have perhaps a problem of language. We don't have a word in English which fully implies what Sanskrit word samskara implies in the yoga literature. So samskaras are nothing but certain tendencies which are already there in our mind, which actually control and determine how we live, how we act, how we speak, how we think, in spite of our best efforts to think and speak and live otherwise. So how to control these samskaras? In his effort, Vyasa, the commentator of Patanjali Yoga-Sutras, he says, our mind can be analyzed in the following fashion. I'm going to tell you. He says, mind has got two compartments. One is our experience, the other is our reaction to these experiences. Experience doesn't necessarily mean experiences coming from outside. Experiences within our own mind, our anger, our feeling, our emotions, and maybe some experiences that frequently come from outside, from other persons, and also the way we react to our own experiences. These are two forces that actually control our mind. That is, experiences called bhoga and our reactions to those experiences. It's called udvega vega. Means the reactions are twofold: extreme likes and extreme dislikes. We should not take a very superficial meaning of these two terms, raga and dvesha. It is called kleshas in the Yoga Sutra language, Avidya, with the raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, pancha klesha. You can find the definition at the beginning. So it's maybe third sutra of Sadhana Patanjali. So this raga and dvesha, raga means extreme aversion, dislike, and raga means extreme obsession, extreme liking, extreme attachment, infatuation. That is raga. Its opposite is dvesha, extreme dislike, extreme aversion. We know that there is no need to dislike certain things. There is no need to hate certain things. We know we want to come out of it, but then we cannot. This obsessive hatred, obsessive dislike to a certain thing is called dvesha, and obsessive infatuation, attachment, liking, called raga. For example, some of the problems related to obsession with the internet, drug addiction, alcohol addictions can be analyzed in the light of these characteristics. But you have to remember, Patanjali and Vyasa, the commentator, and Shankaracharya, who wrote Vivarana, another commentary. Now, they take it for granted that life is not just one chance. So you have to accept the doctrine of reincarnation, of this doctrine of cyclic, transmigratory cycles of lives. I mean, death is not a full stop. Death is only a comma or a semicolon. The journey continues after you are reborn again. When you are reborn, whatever samskaras, whatever impressions we have accumulated in this life, will be born with that. That's why we want to get out of certain things. We cannot. It's called obsessions. So we may know there is no point in disliking certain things, hating certain things, but we cannot. And also we know that certain obsessive attachment, infatuations are very bad for us. People want to get out of it, they cannot get out of it. So Yoga Sutra tells you that is because of the samskaras, impressions, tendencies accumulated in previous life cycles. So how to get out of them? For that, Patanjali tells we have to begin our journey at a physical level. As I mentioned earlier, at a mental level, we do not have much of a control. At the physical level, you can decide whether you want to sit on this chair or that chair. You can decide. At the mental level, you cannot fully determine what is going to be the next thought in your mind, or how you are going to react when the person who meets you on the street abuses you, maybe uses some unpleasant words, how you are going to react. You cannot 100% control. So the point is, Patanjali says, for refining our mind, we have to generate new energy resources. How to refine our mind? Our mind should be given good food. Now, at a physical level, if you eat bad food, we fall sick. At a mental level, if you feed your mind with bad food, the mind also falls sick. For that, we should feed our mind with good food. And the good food for the mind is good thoughts, good ideas, good associations, good attitudes. We can generate good attitudes, good samskaras, good tendencies by reading good books, by doing good acts, by speaking good words. So at the physical level, not only that, by doing something good at the physical level. If we cannot meditate, we can go to a nearby church or a temple or a school or an orphanage, do some creative work without a selfish motive. And you find, suppose you go to an orphanage or an old age home, and or you may you may make a small donation to people suffering from natural calamities in some far off continents countries. And that night, you are able to sleep little bit. Oh, I have done something worthwhile. I have done something meaningful. In Sanskrit, there's a word called krudarthata and krudagrta. That means that inner feeling of inner fulfillment, the joy that we feel, well, I have done something worthwhile. Now, we feel a kind of, at least maybe for some time, maybe it won't last long, still, whenever we do something, when we go to a nearby temple or a church and remove, maybe do some cleaning work, you know, why people, great philanthropists and captains of industry who have piled up billions of dollars, they are not able to get 4 hours sleep without taking pills. So suddenly they want to start a trust, a foundation to help Ebola victims, maybe COVID-19 victims. You know why? Because they want a little relief. They want to feed their mind with some good food. Because whenever you do something at the physical level, some good action, that good physical activity generates spiritual energy. So physical activity generates spiritual energy. And when we generate this spiritual energy, our mind begins to feel a kind of inner tranquility, peace, and happiness. That means our mind is generating new energy resources, spiritual energy resources. That will help us to feed our mind with good food, and our mind slowly begins to feel less conflict when you try to meditate. A person who is trying to meditate or maybe pray, he suddenly feels a terrible person. He wants to go and start a TV, want to read some comic books because he cannot sit, he feels restless. The moment you open the TV, you are very happy. The moment you try to sit and close your eyes and try to meditate, you feel the conflict. Now, the same person, if he stops his efforts to meditate, goes to a nearby place and he does something good for others, after some time, you feel his mind will slowly become his friend. Try to his mind become more and more friendly with you. That's why the Ayurvedic definition of healthy mindedness is prasanna mendriya manaha swasthaita vidhiyati. What it means is, it comes in Susuta Sutta. When your mind, your senses, and your emotions and feelings are in a state of perfect harmony and peace and tranquility, that state of mind is healthy mind. So in order to turn our mind into a friend, we should give good, healthy, nutritious food to our mind. What's a nutritious food that you can begin with? You cannot meditate all of a sudden. Because if you start, many people, when they try to meditate, they feel a lot of conflict. When they pray, try to pray, they feel less conflict. When they try to read a good book, maybe Sermon on the Mount or Bhagavad Gita or Dhammapada, they feel less conflict. But when they try to do something good at a physical level, they feel almost no conflict. And gradually, they can get rid of these conflicting tendencies. So Patanjali says, this is the only way for us to, first of all, refine our samskaras and buddhis. So he says, eventually, you become a yogi, yogaka, chitta, vritti, nirodha. When you refine the vrittis and samskaras, finally, when you transcend, go beyond the waverings or the fluctuations of the mind, then you become a yogi. Patanjali gives a very interesting method for this. Now, he says, everyday interactions, we meet different kinds of people. In our office, maybe during our social interactions, we meet different kinds of people. Some people may be spiritual seekers like ourselves, interested in meditation, maybe interested in higher philosophy, and so on, prayer, and so on. Some people, they are interested, but they don't have a means to practice that. They don't have access to any place where meditation training is given. And there are some people who are much more advanced than us. And there are some people whose association can create conflicts, can increase your own conflicts. So Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. He recommends these 4 methods that we can employ in our own interactions, which will be helpful in generating good food for the mind, good tendency for the mind, and it will be helpful in turning our mind into our own best friend, so that our mind will help us, will be a great friend whenever we try to do something good that is good for us. As I mentioned earlier, we began this discussion when we try to do certain things which we know are very good and necessary for us, mind will not permit. Mind will say, no, tomorrow, do it tomorrow. When you try to meditate, mind slowly, maybe some false excuses, mind will project in front of you. No, I'll meditate tomorrow. When you try to switch on the TV or read a comic, mind has no problem. All right, mind will go. But we try to read some profound book, mind will not help you. Becomes unfriendly. So how to turn that mind into a friend, which will congratulate us, which will help us, which will encourage us when we try to do something good? That's what we are discussing now. So Patanjali says there are 4 methods we have to practice, to implement, employ when during our interactions with others. First, we should be friendly with other fellow spiritual seekers. Then we should be sympathetic towards those who are less fortunate than us. And whenever we meet somebody, some persons who are spiritually more advanced than us, we should appreciate them, we should admire them. But then he gives a warning. There are some people who you may meet in your interactions everyday life. Suppose you tell, I'm reading some good book. Oh, don't read those things. You can read some Terminator, or you can read watch some movies that can make your mind go crazy. There are certain people whose association can load your mind with negativity. You are already convinced of certain great things. They can shake your convictions. They can make your mind much more disruptive, can give you more conflicts. Their interaction with those people, association with certain people you can shape your own convictions on certain higher ideas that you're trying to follow. And Patanjali says, keep a long distance from them. You need not physically keep away from them, because you can't do that. But mentally, we must try to evolve a filtering mechanism, a kind of psychological filtering mechanism, so that even when we are associating with them, their association will not have a negative impact on our mind. So he says it's called Upeksha. It's a very interesting, and then he says, if you practice this, you will get Chitta Prasada. He recommends these 4 methods as a means for achieving what he calls Chitta Prasada, means a kind of a deep essence of inner tranquility, peace, fulfillment, and happiness, which we normally cannot get when we buy a new TV, when you buy a new car, because that can last only for a few days, only till the car breaks down. But when you attain this kind of Chitta Prasada, it becomes a lasting feeling of tranquility, peace, and happiness and quietude. Then he says, this, according to Patanjali, is the road to higher evolution. In the Patanjali Yoga-Sutra, we can find this concept of higher evolution. Now, at the biological level, there is no scope for another evolution, but there is enough scope for further evolution, the cultural level, the spiritual level. Each person can start evolving to a higher level of culture, values, feelings, emotions, and self-restraint, self-control, and so on. Another very interesting and very fascinating contribution of Patanjali is, this is a very interesting aspect. He says, we are not actually achieving something new. All the spiritual practices that we mentioned till now, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. These are Ashtanga Yoga. I mean, non-violence, non-stealing, kind of non-possessiveness, purity of life, inner purity, outer purity, contentment, inner happiness, and then those who believe in God, complete surrender to God. All these 10 disciplines, the first fundamental disciplines are called Yama, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. And the next 5 disciplines called Niyamas, Shauja, Santosha, Tapasya, Adhyaya, Isha, Pradhyana. I already mentioned, explained this in English. Non-violence, non-stealing, freedom from greed, no desire to possess things that belong to others, and a sense of purity of life, a sense of inner and outer purity, physical purity, and mental purity, and a kind of contentment called santosha, and also feeding our mind with good food by reading good books, by discussing good ideas, by feeding our mind with more and more positive ideas, and of course, complete surrender to God. This is easy for those who believe in God. These are 10 disciplines. And then afterwards, Yamanim, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. We should remember, Patanjali doesn't give much importance to physical yoga. Physical yoga is important, no doubt about it. And not only that, the commentators give you a terrible warning. We should never practice extreme pranayama unless you want to go mad, without first being established in yamas and niyamas. It's a very interesting, frequently not well understood. If a person starts practicing extreme, not simple yogasana, extreme forms of yogasana, yogic practice, and extreme forms of pranayama, breathing exercises, without first getting established yama, niyama, what happens, this breath controlling exercises will wake up some of the nervous system in our body and all in the physiological system. And that may generate extreme physical energy, which can lead to many problems, bipolar problems, extreme energy for some time and extreme depression for some time. So Patanjali, not directly Patanjali, but commentatively Vyasa, Shankara, Vijnana Bhikshu, Vajaspati Misra, all these are great commentators. Bhoja was a king actually. He was a king of India, an emperor of India, who wrote Rajamahakanda. So these commentators again and again point out that one should not try to practice extreme forms of asana, not simple asana, extreme forms of like Sirsasana, etc. And also extreme kinds of breathing exercises without first getting established yamas and niyamas. Because yamas and niyamas help you to open positive channels and close negative channels so that the extreme energy and heat generated by yogasana and pranayama exercises will not create problems for you. They will become the fuel for you to go further towards dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Now, I have to finish within 40 minutes, so I will be hurry. After this, there is a very important sutra in the Kaivalya Pada. This is very significant. The sutra is Nimittam Aprayojagam Pragadinam Varana Vedusu Tata Kshetrigavati. What it says is this. All the spiritual practices, either meditation, prayer, reading holy books, or any karma yoga, devotion, discipline, everything. All these are efforts to remove obstacles. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have a field and there is a lake or river nearby, let's say 100 meters away, and you want to irrigate the field. What do? You cut a canal from that lake to the field so that you can irrigate the field. Now, what you are actually doing, you are removing the soil, the earth, along the route of the canal. You are not actually cutting a canal, you are removing the obstacles that stood in the way of the water flowing from the lake to the field. Another example is given by some other commentators. This example directly Kshetrigava means like a farmer, this example. Now, another example is given by some other commentators. Some of the commentators of yoga tradition were Buddhists. Suppose you want to create an image of Buddha. You get a huge granite block. What do? You chisel out all unnecessary parts. And you remove all the unnecessary parts of the granite block. A Buddha emerges. Buddha was already there in the granite. You did not impose a Buddha image on the granite. You chiseled out all the other parts. Like that, you remove the earth from that part of the 100 meters, the route of the canal, so you go to the canal. Like that, when we remove all the negativity, all the unhealthy emotions and feelings, all the unhealthy samskaras from our mind, then what happens? We will be able to get back to our own spiritual home. And a healthy mind is not something that you obtain. Healthy mind is your natural state of mind. Just as you know, when we have a foreign body now, something in the thorn is pushed into, let's say, our hand, we remove it for something foreign. Like that, negative emotions and feelings, impressions that turn our mind into our own enemy are to be removed. Then our natural friend, our mind will become a reality. We will be getting back to our own spiritual home when we remove all unnecessary parts. That's why that is the significance of this sutra. The last Kaivalya Pada contains this sutra. So I have tried to give a bird view. It takes a few hours at least to do justice to some aspects of Yoga-Sutras. So I have done and make an effort in that direction. It's for you to judge. You are most welcome to ask questions. I shall do my best to respond to these questions.
So Ganapati asks, can the practices of yoga, the sadhanas transform? Oh, there you are. You want to ask this question, Ganapati?
Yes, I can. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. The question is, can the practices of yoga, the sadhanas, can they transform us as biological organisms and help us evolve to become better biological organisms? Or are the benefits just only in the realm of the mind? And a follow-up question, how does control of the mind affect the biological organism? Can the mind influence the biological organism in clearly defined ways?
Thank you for the question. Now, when we become more refined psychologically, when we become more refined, in our attitude towards other living creatures, towards, let's say, the ecosystem, towards the environment, that eventually help us to some extent at the level of biology. But it doesn't mean that we will have another head or another eye or nothing like that. Not at a physical level, but at a psychological level, at a cultural level, yoga sadhanas can certainly transform us. They have a tremendous transformative effect on the way we look at other fellow human beings. They can help us to be more refined in our attitude towards fellow human beings, towards the whole creation, towards the environment, all that. Because a person who has a refined mind will not deliberately do anything wrong to any living creature, and will never do anything that could make our life more miserable, like polluted air, water, environment. We do that. So in that respect, yoga sadhanas will have a tremendous transformative effect. It can help us to think better, differently, talk differently, more humane, in a way, simple and more cultured, more refined. So in that respect, yoga can have a tremendous transformative effect in our life. There's no doubt about it. At the biological level, that's why I made it very clear. If you take up the Newtonian concept, you cannot say one Newton changed the world once for all. That is true. I'm not speaking either in favor or against creationism or evolutionism. What I mean to say that evolution as another possibility at a higher level, beyond the biological, the cultural, the psychological, at the level of mind, emotions, and feelings. And in that area, yoga has a tremendous relevance. That's what I was trying to write.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Like you have samskaras of the mind, you also have samskaras of your body, your samskaras of your biological organism. So even if we cultivate a refined mind, if the samskaras of the body prevent us from reaching this refined state and this noble ideal of yoga, how is that going to work? Unless yoga can have a transformative effect on the samskaras of the body, how just cultivating the mind as a more ratified, endeavor help with overcoming samskaras of the body?
For most people who don't take yoga, mysticism, I'm not blaming anybody. For many people, let's say, they are dictated by their body. But as we evolve further, we find our mind can dictate things to our body. As we evolve at the cultural level, at the spiritual level, we are able to transcend and go beyond the pulse of the body. We have to take care of our body. We have to take care of our health, physical health. That's very important. But when we don't have any higher value to guide and inspire our life, then we'll be living very, very physical lives. So long as that's the case, our whole life will be dictated by the demands of the body. As we practice, as we do more and more yoga sadhanas, especially yamas and niyamas, you find you take care of your body, but you don't allow your bodily demands to dictate terms to you. You feel you are something beyond the body, something higher than the body. And at that stage, you'll be able to let the body take orders from your mind. Instead of mind taking orders from the body will turn to mind, a refined mind, to take instructions. It is very dangerous for us to be always in a state of being enslaved by the demands of the body. That's a very dangerous situation. Most of the conflicts and problems that we have witnessed in the last 4,000 years, 3,000 years of human history, but because of people who were dictated by the physical demands, the demands of the body, desire, ambition, power, wealth, and the urge to dominate others, are all related to the biological and the physical. As we evolve to a higher level, what happens is we become aware of something that goes beyond the body, something higher than the body. Actually, beyond the body, there's a mind. Beyond the mind, according to yoga system, there is the Atman. At the Atman level, you find the whole, the entire humanity is one spiritual family. That unity and oneness, the spiritual unity and oneness, cannot be logically understood at the physical level. At the physical level, we are all different from each other. At the psychological level, there may be many common factors. At the spiritual level, we can see that the whole humanity becomes a spiritual family. Actually, yoga slowly transforms your consciousness from the biological, physical, to psychological, cultural, and eventually to spiritual. That is the root of yoga. All the 10 disciplines, yamas and niyamas, are designed to help us to evolve beyond the physical, beyond the biological, so that the physical will not dictate our life. The spiritual, the psychological will dictate the physical and biological. This is the path of yoga. Ashtanga yoga is designed to take a man, a person, from the physical to the spiritual. Samadhi is the last spiritual state, step by step. It's a very, even think of this, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Why should a person practice non-violence? If violence is the easiest and most profitable thing to do at the physical level, you practice non-violence from physical straight to spiritual. You practice contentment, this relentless drive and ambition for wealth and power. The moment you practice, let's say, asteya, aparigraha, means not having any desire that belongs to others and not always go about processing things, and also inner contentment with what we have. So straight from physical to spiritual, that's what the yamas and niyamas are designed to do, to transform our consciousness from the physical to the mental, psychological, and eventually to spiritual. So, yeah.
I hope you can hear me through this math. I'd like to go back to something you said earlier in this very thoughtful talk of yours about language.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because I was nodding my head in agreement with you. If we look at how the world is carved up by us, it's carved up by language. We have to put things into concepts. It's this or it's that, and so on. And I think you're right, because it affects reality. So how you divide the world up in your mind, for even in this room, there's just one room. And we make distinctions, but we're the ones making distinctions. There's just one thing. So how would you suggest people think about their language? What would they look at to improve it so it's better than?
Yeah, you know, Patanjali is the author of the well-known book Mahabhashya. Mahabhashya means literally means a huge canon, very voluminous canon. It's 167 volumes. In that book, he has given a very extensive, interpretative, expansive definition of word, ideas, sentences, and also he points out how the way you speak a word reflects your culture, your refinement. And then eventually he says, the way you speak a word, the word you use also will have its impact on your mind. One cannot go on speaking unpleasant word without eventually the unpleasantness entering his mind. So he says, one should be very careful in what way one uses word in our life. So a word is much more than just a medium of communication. A word reflects our emotions and feelings, the way we look upon others. And not only that, when we hear an unpleasant word, it will have a negative impact on our mind. I mentioned this earlier, that upeksha, when we meet with people whose words can shake our own convictions, we should be very careful to listen carefully, but ignore it. When you have your own colleagues or our own friends who may speak unpleasant words, we cannot physically keep away. But at the same time, when those unpleasant words are sure to give problem, have a disruptive effect on our mind, then mentally we can ignore it. So actually Patanjali uses that word. So he says the highest goal of human existence is to use a correct word in correct context, correct meaning, without giving any agitation to others. It should not agitate our mind, the speaker's mind, and should not agitate the listener's mind. So it should not agitate the speaker's mind and should not agitate the listener's mind. So that's how we should use word. And of course, he was a conservative believer in God. He says the goddess of learning sits at the heart of the word you speak. That's what everyone should look at. Language. So language is elevated to a higher philosophy. I think that in Patanjali's time, somewhere around 1300 BC. So you can imagine the next important work in the same tradition is Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya, that is 2nd century AD. So these are two well-known books, what we may call the philosophy of grammar. Grammar as a philosophical dimension is not just an analysis of words and sentences, but it's a spiritual and philosophical dimension in Patanjali's view.
We have 2 minutes before the end of our session, so I'm going to actually take advantage of this if you allow me to ask another question. I want to keep going with language, and I think you're absolutely right. How we use just carving up the words we've got, but then the use of them in the particular context is absolutely right too. Because a word here used this way might be okay, and over here might not be. And it all depends on how it's being used. So that's somebody's using the words when somebody's hearing these words. So they're the ones who are the receivers of them. How should they take that? So you've talked about what you should do when you're talking. But what about the person who's listening?
So interestingly, the Patanjali doesn't stop with the grammatical fineness of refinement of words. See, your loving grandfather may use a word to call you, which you won't like if a neighbor uses, a total stranger uses. So he says the refinement of a word has a lot to do with the speaker and also the language dimension. But he mostly focuses on the language dimension because he appeared at a time when Sanskrit had many varieties of grammatical forms spread all over Indian subcontinent. So he, okay, Panini did that, Katyayana then the third great figure in the Sanskrit grammatical system is Patanjali. So he was the one who gave a very extensive interpretation. So he says, refinement or fineness of speech or language is not limited to the grammatical aspect, the philological linguistic aspect, but also to the speaker. So very often you find in Sanskrit language, there is what contextual fluctuations. So a word can have different meaning when used in the Samhita portion, Brahmana portion, Aranyaka portion. And then he says, that Durga, there is a Durgacharya was a great commentator who wrote a commentary on Yaska's Nirukta. You may have heard of Nirukta is like this. It's the first effort to give a dictionary meaning to some of the Vedic songs. About 400 Vedic songs were taken by Yaska, and he wrote a commentary. There he says, Vaktuhu Vaividyat, Prakarana Vaividyat, Vaktuhu Vaividyat means different, the meaning of a word or sentence can vary according to the context in which it is used and also the person who uses them. So the meaning of a word very often is determined by the context, which has to do with language and philology, and also the person who uses it. So Patanjali also accepts this. The refinement is not limited to the grammatical aspect, but also to the person. As I mentioned, your grandmother may call you by, if she's alive, she may call you by one name, but you won't like that language when it's used by a total stranger. So we come to context, and also the speaker who uses it.
There's one more question if you'd be kind
Yeah.
enough. Tyler, go ahead.
Rather than obsessing over material items when pursuing positive, meaningful experiences, how do we maintain a healthy mind while avoiding yearning for past nostalgia? Oh, yeah. Patanjali doesn't ask us to analyze our emotions and feelings thread by. It is very unhealthy, actually. It's very unhealthy. So, in this context, and this is very, very important, especially when answering this question, he uses the word sublimation, and the word he uses is pratipaksha bhavana. So he says, all negative tendencies can be turned into positive and can be turned into a health. So the word is uses pratipaksha bhavana. For example, when we feel a kind of irrational fear, we can sublimate that by the practice of Ishvara Pranidhana, means surrender to God. When we feel a kind of irrational hatred for someone, we can transform it into something positive by trying to think of love and compassion. So every negative feeling can be turned into something positive. Again, in the context of spiritual life, he says every positive spiritual idea can refine and reinforce our mind, but all conflicting obstacles can be turned into positive by giving it a sublimation. The word sublimation is used in the word used in Pratipaksha Bhavana means you think of its opposite. Hatred can be sublimated into love. fear can be sublimated to devotion. We can find this, and many of our listeners may, especially belong to the, let's say, familiar with the well-known Saint Teresa of Avila's autobiographical writings. So she talks about her fear, her feelings of being abandoned in her autobiography in the passage you can find. So she sublimated all her fears, all her irrational thought currents into positive by dedicating everything to Jesus. So this is possible, it's easy for a person who firmly believes in God. Those who do not believe in God, even for them, this can be used. In the Patanjali system is not directly linked to kind of monotheistic religion. There is, of course, a strong element of devotion to God, but it is a very broad-based system. So he says, even without being religious, a person can sublimate all negative thought currents, all negative obstacles in the mind into something positive through sublimation. It's a very important, that is word pratibhaksha bhavana. Thinking of the opposite of the negative, contemplating or pursuing the opposite of the negative, which is positive. The opposite of hatred is love, follow that. The opposite of fear is thinking of God as the protector. So it's called surrender.
Well, I want to thank you for this wonderful talk and answering these questions that we've had. It's been hugely beneficial, and you're a great teacher on this. So what I want us to do is thank our speaker again for this was recorded. What will happen is Tyler will take the recording, edit it, and with your permission, because we'll let you, we want you to see it, and you to see it as well. And then once you approve it, we'll put it on the Northern Plains Ethics Institute YouTube channel and in our Facebook, so that folks who couldn't make it today could actually see it, and they could see everything, although they won't be able to ask you questions, unfortunately. So thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, and have a great day.